Hey everyone, today I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion topic regarding whether Monster Hunter has finally met its match. This is in reference to an article from Xputer. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for that. This is an article from Amama Farouk, kind of opening the discussion whether WildHearts has actually succeeded in what it was trying to do, or if at the end of the day, World is just too good or too interesting, or perhaps just the player base is just too big to kind of be, or maybe too entrenched, if you want to look at it that way, to actually make any sort of headway into the conversation. Now, for me personally, I know I haven't given any sort of updates regarding my playtime with WildHearts, and that is because at some point, about maybe halfway through the story, I just kind of stopped playing altogether, and I didn't really feel the interest to go back and finish it. I know I spoke about maybe I was going to put a review at some point way past launch time. I didn't get a review code from EA or anything like that, not that they know who I am, but I did request one. They didn't provide me one, so I ended up buying it for PlayStation 5. I played it for a while, and then I just kind of stopped playing, It didn't really grab me. I never really found a weapon that caught my interest. I maybe thought even the ranged weapon, the cannon, was going to be good enough. It wasn't. And it's just varied enough that it's interesting in its own right, but kind of like Toukiden. I felt kind of like at the same way with Toukiden or even God Eater. At some point, it just kind of falls flat, and it just feels very samey to me, where Monster Hunter, even World, which was most likely my least liked Monster Hunter game, even that game felt way more diverse than what WildHearts ended up feeling. So in the article, they basically mentioned that the gaming industry is no stranger to competition, and it seems like the new contender is set to take on one of the most beloved franchises in the action role-playing genre. EA's WildHearts has been generating buzz within the gaming community, with some speculating that it could surpass the popularity of Monster Hunter. Since Monster Hunter has dominated the market with such a long time, it's become quite formidable competitor. This may be the reason why many companies have stayed away from jumping into the ring. However, the ones who were brave enough found little to no success. However, it seems like Monster Hunter has finally met its match. Recently, WildHearts came into the picture, and many fans believe it could be a better version of Monster Hunter. In fact, according to GameSpot, they believe that there are multiple things that WildHearts takes the cake, and these include monsters integrated into monster design, characters' interactions with its surroundings, Karakuri building, eat on the go, varied difficulty settings. If you ask Monster Hunter fans why they like the game, it's very likely that the answer will be that it's the best one at what it does. It's a slow burn, and it requires a lot of commitment and planning. While a lot of players might love an immersive system and storytelling, it's certainly not everyone's cup of tea. I would argue that it has almost no storytelling, and even when it does, it's not very good, but it is what it is. That is just my opinion of the Monster Hunter stories in general. They have not been great, but fair enough. This slow style is exactly the reason why many Monster Hunter fans might end up jumping the boat. WildHearts, while the same genre, gives players faster and far easier to digest alternatives. This means that anyone can play WildHearts without committing too much. In an article by Reno Gazette Journal, they termed happy medium between Monster Hunter and faster-paced games like God Eater. And I have to tell you guys, the opening paragraphs really do feel like it was something written and like basically probably requested by EA, because they really try to make this argument that there's this fervor base of players for WildHearts really clamoring for more, when at the end of the day, I don't see that. I haven't seen that. There's a lot of channels that have kind of tried to begin covering WildHearts more. The numbers just don't compete. The conversation just nearly isn't even there. And of course, it's going to take a lot more than just one release, one game, and 20 or so monsters to really make the jump. But I'm not here to criticize. I'm here to kind of present their ideas. They mentioned, what is WildHearts? WildHearts first came into the picture on February 17th of this year. From the get-go, fans knew that they were in for quite a ride. Again, interesting wording. WildHearts is a collaboration between Omega Force and Electronic Arts under the EA Origins label. Throughout the games, director Kotaro Hitara and Takuo Edagawa take players into the wild quest across the mystical worlds inspired by feudal Japan. The title's development first started in 2018, according to Kotaku. Director Kotaro Hirata and his team learned that their experience developing the Token series, though that experience they intended to create a modern Japanese Monster Hunter title. The title, as mentioned, takes place in Japan and pays homage to the Japanese crafting techniques called karakuri. These crafting techniques are the main selling point of WildHearts. They are in fact used in a system that lets players utilize various support structures. These include and are not limited to a big wall or giant springboard to influence the battlefield. I will say regarding all of the influencing for the Japanese audience, which of course is what they were going after, the game is very much Western style in the way that it plays. And WildHearts did not necessarily crush it in sales in Japan. I think if anything, I believe based on what I saw in the sales figures that were shared on Install Base, this is like a forum where they report like sales numbers or whatever. I believe WildHearts might have like made it into the top 10, top sellers of that week. And the week of launch, and then soon after it fell off and it was never to be seen from again. Of course, only on PlayStation 5. No one's actually buying Xbox games, physically. It would just be a digital purchase at the end of the day. And then they have a quote from the producer. Yeah, I think when we look at WildHearts, we had an idea within our development stage here that we wanted to incorporate crafting elements to it. But then we think of the world that we've created. It's a very Japanese style hunting action game, which of course just means monster hunting. And now we've incorporated this crafting element. What's really something here is that there's a lot of trial and error over what we tried to figure out how to get it right. And we got our hint from more of ancient techniques. We have our technology called the karakuri in Japan, where things are built using thread. They're attached to each other using thread. And so we focused on this. Now even Japanese people, when we think of karakuri, we actually think of these characters, these puppets that we have. So it's like puppeteering. You have all the thread and the pieces that control different pieces with attached thread. We kind of took that and we just kind of expanded on it. It's not like it's really puppets anymore. We still wanted to incorporate it into a system and to build using things as thread. We felt that it really fit really well with the world that we were creating, and that's how we worked and adapting into this. Now, the really funny thing here is that, of course, Rise introduced the wire bug. And, of course, essentially when you're mounting a monster, you're using the wire bug's powers to thread to be able to, like, puppeteer the monster into, doing what it is that you want it to do. So it's interesting that they try to coin it as if it's an original thought or an original idea. But, of course, it was kind of done before, WildHearts, of course. They also mentioned that the karakuri play a vital role as they help players fight against the beast in the game, which are known as the kimono. According to the official EA website, they refer to these creatures as the kimono, who is an embodiment of power and nature. This giant beast fused with natural elements over time, modifying their environments to accommodate their needs. While a lot of fans have been comparing WildHearts to Monster Hunter, the directors gave us their own 2 cents on it. In another interview with Inverse, they said that to be compared to Monster Hunter series, that is an honor in and of itself. But we believe this new title, WildHearts, is by no means inferior to Monster Hunter. We can hold our own. In the same interview, the director elaborated that while Monster Hunter has previously dominated the market due to their quality, WildHearts will also encapsulate the same quality with faster paced narrative. Which, if you really want to get into an arm race about making games a little bit faster, essentially it stops being a Monster Hunter game. I've seen a lot of memes recently regarding like the longsword and how you can just combo attacks one after another with the longsword and essentially never stop attacking. Which is very reminiscent of how like switch hacks used to be back in like Generations Ultimate, where you could just never have any downtime whatsoever. You're constantly dodging, getting out of the way, but continually attacking, continually. You just never end. And Longsword has become that. It's very reminiscent to something like Devil May Cry, where it no longer feels like a Monster Hunter game. It's just an action game until the monster dies. The article continues, what WildHearts does better than Monster Hunter. At first glance, WildHearts seems to take quite a lot of inspirations from the beloved Monster Hunter. This includes elements like fierce enemies, diverse weapon options, and cooperative gaming. However, WildHearts has certainly improved on many different elements. These include the surface and under the hood to separate itself from Monster Hunter. WildHearts used the karakuri system to most obvious and glaring differences. The karakuri system allows players to build and construct basic, fusion, or dragon karakuri. All 3 of them help with the different aspects of a player's journey. The Karakuri really sets WildHearts apart and is a competitor as it helps to create springs, hammers, bombs, harpoons, zipline straps, and even roller vehicles. Moreover, in their article, Empire tells another important reason why the Karakuri is so important. It can help craft on the fly to aid hunting and battling the kimono. What's more is that Karakuri can stay on the field across multiple hunts. This means that the Karakuri has an immense tactical advantage as they are seamlessly integrated into the combat loop. Another aspect is the kimono themselves. They are known to be notoriously hard to defeat. According to GamerRanks, the developers, after they made the kimono, realized that they were too hard to beat. So rather than compromising on the difficulty of the kimono and tarnishing the game's quality, they thought of using powerful tools. And in the interview, they mentioned that Hirata had this to say about the whole ordeal, where they were just massive creatures with too much power, but then the Karakuri idea came in, and then we realized that the Karakuri system might be too strong now. We wanted to make sure the kimono were really strong and really difficult to beat, because we wanted players to feel the sense that it was a challenging endeavor, but trying to find that the right balance between the actual strength of the kimono versus the strength of the players was the hardest balance to figure out. And that is just, by nature, one of the biggest criticisms we have had levied. Me personally, and I know other content creators have done the same, but also the player base has done the same regarding to Monster Hunter. Not just Rise or even Sunbreak. Hell, World and Iceborne, pretty much had the same criticisms. And I remember even going back to like 3 Ultimate and Generations and 4 Ultimate and all of that. They all had the same criticisms. Some quests are too hard, some monsters are too difficult, others are too easy. Balance it out and figure it all out. And it's not easy. Development for, balance and difficulty, because there's such a massive wide spectrum, it's just kind of one of those things that, it's really hard to balance. So some content will always be tailored for everyone, which is what we have, for example, in Monster Hunter with Event Quest. And then everything else, end game related, let's say Anomaly Investigation Quest, level 220 plus or whatever, that will always be tailored for true end game hunting, where not everyone will reach that place. They also mentioned that WildHearts' lineup of unique monsters and weapons is the icing on top. According to Polygons, there are 8 different types of weapons and players can choose when the game starts. One weapon that most players seem to be a fan of is the Karakuri staff, which can turn into a huge sword. This sword is similar to the charged blade. The Karakuri katana, on the other hand, can turn into a behemoth-style chain whip with high range and serious blunt damage. Hence, the Karakuri katana is the way to go for players if they want to inflict a lot of damage in little time. Moreover, the heavy bowgun is the equivalent of the cannon. It focuses on building meter and causes massive damage once the cannon is fully heated up. Another major difference with WildHearts is the influence over multiplayer. As per Eurogamer, playing online will be a seamless process thanks to the better online support. In an interesting article by The Loadout, it was stated that WildHearts should shockingly not include micropayments. That's not to say that they will not have any microtransactions. It is anticipated that they could be part of the premium expansion, just like Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. I will make a clarification that the developers did say that at the early time of launch, essentially like the early launch period, basically when the game is $60 still, in retail stores or whatever, or maybe at a digital storefront, they will not be doing microtransactions. They will be introducing them at a later date. So they said everything that is available in the game, you can earn it normally, but at a post, launch period, whatever that is, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, eventually they will be adding, some sort of purchasable DLC, whatever the case is, whether that is weapons that are powered up, whether it is crafting stuff. I don't know. I can't speak to that. We don't know that. They haven't said any of that, but they did say it will come at a later date. But that's not all. WildHearts will also be supported post-launch content with the new kimono fights as well as new Karakuri to play around with. While WildHearts is an amazing title, it does not come without multiple issues, namely its performance. Koei Tecmo is quite notorious for creating poor quality games. That's a very harsh criticism. I tell you, Rise of 3 right now, I just put up a review on that. It's a great game, especially on PS5. It runs amazing. The Nintendo Switch version, though, because of the open areas, does have some performance issues, but on PS5 the game runs amazing. So I wouldn't be crapping on Koei just like that. This recurring theme presents itself in WildHearts 2. These painful stutterings as well as large SPF drops significantly bring down what's otherwise an excellent title. What's more is that many players have reported that WildHearts runs terribly and riddled with bugs. And lastly, they mentioned that the debate whether WildHearts is better than Monster Hunter remains open-ended. While WildHearts boasts of its unique features and gameplay, it currently faces challenges that hinder its full potential. Nonetheless, the presence of a competitor from WildHearts could be beneficial to Monster Hunter, as it can push the developers to innovate and improve even further. Only time will tell how much that turns out. And Monster Hunter has already improved. Rise and Sunbreak have become extremely different than what we had in World and Iceborne. And I assume if they continue to develop on that, the next game will take more of an Iceborne turn with the faster gameplay of Rise and Sunbreak and make it even better. So, obviously, it will be a current gen game, PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. So, it'll have that on this back pocket as well. So, I think, they're in pretty good hands regarding what the next phase will be. So, I certainly wanted to bring attention to this article. It reads like, some interesting EA propaganda, but it does make some good points regarding whether WildHearts is truly a Monster Hunter competitor or if it's just trying to do its very own thing. At the end of the day, I do think that it needs at the very least a sequel so we can actually feel and see if this franchise will actually go anywhere. But, it's EA. Most likely, they're not going to support it if the sales aren't there. And based on what we saw, the sales weren't there. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching.